Haha, okay, come on guys, we've all seen the ending of Fleabag. I mean, did we really think we were gonna get a happy ending from killing Eve? Anyway, so I'm quite amazed by the extent of disappointment that there is for this finale. Not only just the ending, but for the whole season as well. Don't get me wrong, there are issues with it, as there always will be in season finales, because that is the hardest season to write. And I think what's really pushed me to make this video and just to defend the season is the fact that people are saying it's as bad as the Game of Thrones finale. Personally, I think that's quite a harsh comparison. I mean, that suggests that the writing was completely out of character for the show and with the characters themselves. Granted, it's sad as hell to see one of the best relationships on TV come to an end in such a painful way, but as a finale, I think it translates an ending completely necessary for the main character, Eve, and I'm here to argue that unfortunately I think it was the only way that they could have done it. If Carolyn's ambiguous past of saving the world 3 times tells us one thing, it's that she is insanely good at her job and will swallow any hard feelings to get that job done. And by this point, having lost her son in the process of finding the 12, she is desperate for normality in her respective career again. And as we know, the only way for Carolyn to do that is to finally hand over the 12 as well as Villanelle. For Carolyn, Eve's obsession with Villanelle caused Kenny's death, so that could be an underlying reason for Carolyn's actions in assassinating Villanelle. By this point, I think Carolyn is just done with Eve and her obsession, and since she's been manipulating Eve throughout the entire show, it was completely on character for her to do it until the very end. Carolyn has always used Eve and Villanelle's relationship to get what she wants. Carolyn wrote Eve into the mission from the very first episode, so it makes sense for the whole story and the whole series for her to be the one to tear them apart. It creates this nice cyclical ending where Eve is forced back to where she started. And cyclical structures are used in film to create a satisfying end. It classically symbolises the repetition and fluidity of life, and in Killing Eve's case, I think it's the opposite. There's always been this never-ending cycle of suffering and death and pain caused by Eve's obsession with Villanelle. Someone she loves dies, she grieves and moves on. Someone else dies, she grieves and moves on. It's happened so much within the show, and it's become an unhealthy addiction at this point. So I think in a sick and almost necessary way, this was the only way that Carolyn could let Eve go, to destroy the person that destroyed Eve's entire life. So there's nothing left for Eve to do now but just grieve and stop. Also, the fact that the last 2 lines of the whole series is Carolyn saying "jolly good" just summarises her character completely. Carolyn struggles to care about people, so for her the job always comes first. Okay, I might be reading into this a little bit too much, and Fiona Shaw might just be making a face, but it looks like Carolyn could be giving a tiny little smirk of satisfaction now that she's completed the job. And if that's true, it just gives this extra level of eerie depth to Carolyn. Her unpredictability is infinite at this point, and I think it's just a great ending for a cold and professional character. To be the most cold and professional she's ever been in the whole series. So historically, we've only had a short number of really intense Eve and Villanelle scenes together. You can name them off the top of your heads, you've got the I'm expensive scene, the shepherd's pie scene in season 1, the I'm not with them when I'm with them scene, and the bridge scene, they're all so memorable because it's our favourite characters alone together. But these scenes are always short, so having 20 minutes of Villanelle and Eve together, being domestic and happy with each other, was so much more than I expected. I really thought at the sleeping bag shot that was going to be it. We were going to have that embrace, that beautiful parallel from season 1, and they just carry on and go find the 12 together. I didn't expect the piss kiss, I didn't expect the revels, that amazing blissful time of just watching them behave domestically together. It was almost too good to be true, which I think is why the ending was so much more painful than expected, and I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad they gave us what we wanted, rather than try to make it less painful by just giving us, just teasing us with the notion that Eve and Villanelle would get together at some point. But they did get together, they got what they wanted, especially Villanelle. After 4 seasons of this tug and war between these 2 characters, it is so rewarding to finally see them together for more than 10 minutes. The point I'm trying to make is that it wouldn't have felt this exciting if we had had more screen time with them. It's got to a point where there's so little screen time with Eve and Villanelle that every time that they are together, it's an iconic moment from the show. And as we know, that's what makes the show so good. It's their lack of screen time together. It's the less is more scenario. For example, in season 3, where they miss each other at the train station, Eve and Villanelle communicated so much just through these heartbreaking waves, and the shot feels so heavy and full of emotion because once again they've missed each other. They're only in the shot together for about 3 seconds. But I love that about this show. And famously, Killing Eve has always presented visual parallels between the characters to communicate the dynamic of their relationship even when they're not in the same country, and overall how equally obsessed they are with each other. What I'm trying to argue here is that this magnetism and passion that we've witnessed and adored for the past 4 seasons is so special to us that I think it's better that we have witnessed everything that they've ever gone through together until the very end. Personally, I think it's just so hopelessly romantic. This is like Orpheus and Eurydice or Jack and Rose. And hey, Eve said it herself that they consume each other before they got old. They knew they wouldn't make it out alive together, so I think the last episode is just them enjoying it while they can. I think they both knew it. So I'm just surprised that people are so shocked that Villanelle did die in the end. Speaking of the end, haha, here we go. The ending was interesting because when I first watched it, I didn't like how fast-paced it was. It was so quick. I mean, the destruction of the 12 was almost comical, really. And I didn't like that at first, but upon rewatching, I realised that I never actually cared about the 12, and I don't think we were ever supposed to. I might be forgiving some laziness in the writing here, but overall, this story has always been about Eve and Villanelle, and the 12 was just a plot device to keep the storylines tied together, really. I changed my mind when watching the finale again because shifting the focus on the 12 meant that we had more screen time. Very important screen time, I must say, with Villanelle and Eve. By the end of the show, Villanelle has completed her own personal journey of growth and change. In her eyes, she's done it. She's proved to Eve, the only person left that she loves, that she is now good. She's not the monster, the destroyer, the darkness that every other female figure in her life said she was. Unfortunately though, she's just single-handedly murdered a group of people, so this clarifies that Villanelle was the scorpion in the fable, the one who cannot change her nature, no matter how hard she tries. And while it's heartbreaking, it was right that they kept this realistic to Villanelle's psychopathy. Alas, she couldn't change her nature, but she could change enough to gain Eve's complete trust, which was ultimately the only significant change that she desired. And she got it. Until this happens, oof, this death was brutal. But it did have some beautiful shots that I want to overanalyze. Like this shot, for example. Villanelle's positioned as if she's been nailed to an invisible crucifix with 2 bloody wings spreading from her back. There's also this halo of light shining down on her, creating a really peaceful shot overall in her death. I love this angelic symbolism because the halo juxtaposed with the bloody wings represents Villanelle's opposed morality throughout the show. She's never been able to decide whether she's good or bad. This struggle for her has just been so much that in death, she's finally at peace. It's breaking my heart to say that. The shot overall just shows that she is a fallen angel. And for the audience and Eve, we see her as an angel, but for the rest of the world, she's seen as this dangerous, evil force. I love this shot here with Villanelle rising like the sun. Don't shove the sun. While Eve is slowly sinking down into more and more despair. Also, I'm having some fun here. I'm just getting carried away, but carrying on with the religious connotations, you could compare this shot with the creation of Adam. You know, framing Villanelle's hand as Eve's God. Eve's God who is the creator of her happiness, the creator of her life, and also her downfall. And Villanelle, in her death, still contains this godlike power that Eve has always worshipped. Additionally, I'd love to believe as well that Villanelle's vanity and creativity also motivated her to jump into the Thames. Like she knew how angelic she'd look in the water. Once again, holding the power over Eve. Like even in death, she won the whole cat and mouse race. And finally, I'll just say, leaving Eve looking like a drowned rat in the middle of the Thames next to the symbolism of the bridge from season 3 is horrible and beautiful at the same time. At the end of the day, the show is called Killing Eve, and if that shot doesn't beautifully define the name of the show, then I don't know what will.